So the year of 2024 has now come to a close with the UFC's final event of the year taking place in Tampa, and now I'm going to start off my top 10 or top 10s or the year in review with the top 10 KOs of the year, my personal top 10 KOs of the year, and then at the end after I've gone over them, I'll look over the Tapology community's top 10 KOs of the year as well, because of course mine is a bit different. Now, firstly, I do want to say I'm not going to be uploading as much as I expected over the Christmas and New Year period. I might pre-record a bunch of videos, but long story short, I don't have work here where I am right now for a couple of weeks after Christmas. So I'm going to go home to be with my family because there is, I guess, like a couple of like family things that I need to be there for, like for sure. So I'll be away for a couple of weeks, so you probably won't hear from me much, but a lot of videos that will be coming out will probably be pre-recorded, and they'll probably be all recorded today because I have the day off work because it's raining. I work as a roofing laborer right now, and it's raining, so I'm not working. But anyway, let's get into it. Let's start off. This is a very loose order. 1 to 10, a very loose order. I think I could shuffle these around if I really thought about it, but this is definitely like a general top 10 KOs of the year for me. So coming in at number 10, Pereira's knockout over Jamal Hill. Like, it is, I guess, somewhat of a basic KO, just considering the fact that it was just a left hook. But it was a pretty important KO, I think, for a lot of reasons. The first one is it kind of started a bit of a meme with him pushing away the ref and then just proceeding to knock out Jamal Hill, which is quite cool. And then it kind of has now led on to Jamal Hill being what Jamal Hill is doing right now, which is kind of funny. But also, it was pretty big for Pereira to get this win because, in hindsight, of course, he should have been a bigger favorite. A lot of people were picking Hill. I picked Pereira with a lot of confidence in this fight. He knocked out Hill in the first round. It really did secure his place, I thought, at 205 pounds. But as for the knockout, he put Jamal Hill out cold with a pretty big left hook. It was just a great performance overall, really. Peyton Talbot versus Yanis Gamori. I think that this is also deserving of a mention. It was just pretty much a one-shot knockout with a couple of ground and pound shots afterwards in 19 seconds. This was a fight which a lot of people, including myself, were saying this is just a layup for Peyton Talbot. You know, Peyton Talbot's going to win this, like no problems, this, and that. And that's what he did, you know, but at the end of the day, he still did have a little bit of pressure, I feel like, to perform in a matchup like this against Yanis Gamori, who actually does have not too bad striking defense, and we just saw Talbot knock him out in the first round. I mean, in the first minute, in the first 19 seconds, that's kind of really where it comes down to, and I think that Talbot, this was a big performance for him, because I think that he is a guy that a lot of people are going to have their eyes on going into 2025. And then I had Topuria's knockout over Volkanovski. I put this one in here just because I think that it was actually quite unexpected, and just the fact that he knocked out Alexander Volkanovski. I think that the opponent, the person that you knock out, is relatively important as well. I think Islam Makhachev was credited a lot for knocking out Volk with the head kick. But pretty much with this one here with Topuria, it wasn't necessarily like the cleanest knockout because he did perform it by like rushing forward with a bunch of hooks and then catching Volk. But the fact that he did knock out Volkanovski, you know, like it just is like one of the best knockouts of the year. It just is. That's kind of all there is to it. There wasn't really anything crazy like a big spinning wheel kick, which kind of hints what I do have a little bit later on in the video. But it was a big KO over Volkanovski, and it really just kind of set Topuria and the featherweight division maybe as a whole like into a big stardom sort of situation. Maybe Topuria's moving up to 155. I hope he doesn't. Like, I genuinely don't think that he actually is as big as his coaches are claiming. I mean, if he really did weigh in at 167 pounds on the fight day, he can't be walking around at 190 pounds like his coaches are claiming. Like, he's probably walking around at like 180 pounds, 175, I feel like, even at most, because I believe most of these guys, they cut 15 to 20% of their body weight. You know, Volk cut 15%, Topuria cut 16%. I don't know where this 190 pounds is coming from, man. He's 5'7". But anyway, we'll move on. I did have Redovich knockout over Terrence McKinney in here as well. Just 37 seconds. Caught McKinney with a head kick, like up close as well. It wasn't even like a head kick from range. Like, they were both pretty close together when he just threw up the head kick and knocked Terrence McKinney out cold. kind of a nuts one because like McKinney was out before he even hit the ground. It was just kind of, well, one of the best KOs of the year, was it not? And although Terrence McKinney, I mean, to be fair, he probably is like on the receiving end of so many top 10 lists of the KOs of the year, because this guy has been knocked out 5 times. Um, I mean, Ismail Bonfim's knockout over him last year was the top 10 KO of the year as well. I mean, and even then you could maybe even argue that Drew Dober's like KO over him. And anyway, Terrence McKinney, he's on the receiving ends of a lot of highlights. He is a walking highlight reel for his opponents, and Rilovich was able to capitalize on that. He got a massive, massive knockout with a head kick there. Now, I thought that Pratia's knockout over Li Jingliang also does deserve a mention here. I think we're at like number 6 or 7 right now. Clean KO over a guy that's never been knocked out before. That's kind of where it come to, and Pratia's just like pieced him apart. Like the performance itself was a fantastic performance, but then the knockout was so clean. You know, he just was smoking Li Jingliang with combinations for multiple times before he eventually landed the big hook that just put Li Jingliang down. And it was just a great performance for Pratia's overall, a good striking performance over a guy that hasn't been knocked out before. I think that is worthy of a mention. Feng Shuai knockout loss to Shi Ming, I apologize, is definitely also worth noting as well. I think that I have this, this must be number 5 now, we're at this point. We're pretty recent, but I don't think that there is recency bias here. I completely discredited Shi Ming in this matchup. I thought she wasn't going to win. I thought she didn't really have much chance. And Feng Shuai was beating her up. Feng Shuai was winning this fight until out of nowhere, Shi Ming just hits her with this massive head kick KO, and she just knocks out Feng Shuai out cold. I mean, Feng Shuai comes out on a stretcher. It was a pretty bad situation. I actually don't know if she's actually recovered, even to this day. It's been pretty serious situation. She was in the hospital for a while, I think. So, pretty massive finish for Shi Ming, and it also just did kind of spark a lot of like interest in her because she's a doctor. I didn't actually know that she was actually a doctor, by the way. And she fights on the side, and her parents didn't even know that she fought until now. So it's kind of nuts. Another performance as well, involving a Chinese fighter, but this time on the losing end. I thought that Muslim Salikov's knockout over Song Kanan was also deserving of the knockout of the year mention as well. This is number 4 for me because it was a spinning wheel kick KO. I feel like people just don't love these as much as I do. I mean, you just don't see these happen much at all. He landed a big spinning wheel kick on Song Kanan. Once again, just the way that he did it, it was a spinning wheel kick that knocked him out. I think that's kind of enough to really kind of put him in the knockout of the year of conversations, and that's why I do have him here. Another one as well that I think is a little bit like unmentioned. This is my number 3 KO of the year, by the way, number 18 on the community rankings. I like to consider, like, with my KOs of the year, like this is a bit messed up, I know, but I do consider like the brutality of the finish as well sometimes. And in the situation against Matt Frivola, like, it was such a bad KO. Like, Matt Frivola, like, might never be the same again. Like, he might not even fight again. I don't know. He's 34 years old, so he's past his prime. It was just a brutal knockout, man. Like, Matt Frivola turned into him, and Faris Ziam just met him with a massive knee. And, yeah, Frivola was out for a while. It was the bad KO. And Ziam, I mean, I don't really see Ziam as, like, a massive KO artist. And he may have just very well ended the career of Matt Frivola with that huge knockout over him, which was just kind of ridiculous. And also, I think I did pick Matt Frivola in this matchup, so kind of a situation where the guy that I didn't pick won as well. So kind of like a pretty massive one just for me personally. Number 2, by the way, I actually do have Holloway versus Gaethje. This one, fight of the year. I disagree with it being the fight of the year, by the way. I guess that kind of talks about what I have for fight of the year when I do eventually make that list. I don't even think it was the best fight on UFC 300, and I said that on my UFC 300 recap. I think Prochazka versus Rakic was a more entertaining fight than this one, but the knockout, this was the best knockout of the year, aside from one. But one knockout of the year, I think. Deservedly so, but my personal knockout just because of my personal kind of the way that I do my rankings and stuff is a little bit different. But Holloway's knockout over Justin Gaethje, it was a massive moment. It was in the last 10 seconds of the 5-round fight, which I don't think was as fun as I guess a lot of people think. But I know a lot of people agree with me, because when it won Fight of the Year, a lot of people were actually commenting on how the fight itself wasn't ridiculously entertaining. It was just the final moments. But the final moments is what made the fight. And that's what made this one of the best KOs of the year, where Holloway and Gaethje decided to throw down, but at the end of the day, they were just like swinging. You know, it wasn't anything too technical. They were just throwing down, and eventually Holloway landed, and he landed big. I think he actually landed more than once on Gaethje and put him down, put him out with just a second to go in the 5th round. But my personal KO of the year, this was never going to be topped when it happened in March. Vinicius Oliveira's knockout over Bernardo Sapai. Absolutely ridiculous finish. Really, really, really sad to see it happen to someone so young, a 23-year-old Bernardo Sapai. When I saw it happen, I just couldn't really believe it. And then I just felt so bad for Sapai, because Sapai is such a good prospect and he's so young. And Oliveira literally did so much damage to him with that KO. If you guys haven't seen it, Sapai is pretty gassed out. He's actually had a pretty good fight on short notice, by the way, against Oliveira. And Sapai just kind of gave up like an opportunity for Oliveira to just sprint at him and throw up a jumping knee and just knee him up against the cage. In the year, it was the most brutal KO of the year in the UFC. I think it was the best KO of the year for me personally, just because of how it happened, and also it was a flying knee KO. You know what I mean? It wasn't a punch KO. It wasn't a hit KO. It was a flying knee KO, and I feel like for me personally, I quite like different sort of styles. Like, you know, we see a lot of KOs with the punches, which are great. They are great, but the fact that it was a flying knee. A little bit of a comeback as well, I would say, because Bernardo Sapai was finding some success early in the matchup. It was just, overall, the most brutal knockout of the year. It was my best KO of the year. Obviously, you could put this there. I think you could even argue this was the KO of the year as well. I mean, I'm pretty open to that. But then aside from that, I think the rest of the rankings is pretty good as well. This is the community's knockout of the years. Gaethje versus Holloway, number 1. I don't really disagree. I mean, Sapai versus Oliveira is their number 2. Volkanovski versus Topuria 3. Pereira versus Hill 4. Poirier versus Saint Denis 5. I didn't have that in my ranking. I just think that the KOs that I talked about were more impressive to me personally. Pereira versus Prohaska 2. Same situation. I preferred Pereira's KO over Jamal Hill. And I know it was a great head kick KO. Like, it was great. Once again, I feel like the other KOs that I talked about were better to me personally. Topuria versus Holloway definitely does deserve a mention and probably could have slid in my top 10 now that I really think about it, considering no one's knocked out Holloway before. But, you know, once again, I'd already had Topuria versus Volkan there. And then Topuria had one hell of a year, didn't he? But, Schnell versus Usyk, I mean, it was just a one-shot straight right on Matt Schnell. Matt Schnell's been highlighted before so many times. I mean, I guess you could make the same argument about McKinney, but Ankalaev versus Walker, kind of the same thing. Like, he just knocked out Walker. Walker's been KO'd so many times, and every time he gets KO'd, it's hilarious. I mean, you know, Denige versus Andre Fili, that was huge. I do agree with that. Robert Whittaker versus Liskarov, it was a massive moment, but the KO itself, I don't really agree too much. I don't mind trying to put the Magomedov versus Petrosian getting a lot of credit with the spinning back fist. I actually think it was spinning hammer fist, because he didn't hit with the back of his hand. He actually hit with the side of his hand. So I think that there was a spinning hammer fist KO, but I'll probably have to rewatch it. They've got Lee versus Prates, Lopez versus Sadiq Youssef. A lot of clinch strikes and the uppercuts. I don't mind it. I think the moment itself, though, was quite big for Lopez. Walker versus Oosterdamir, I mean, once... Dude, how many receiving ends was Walker on the KO? Big comeback KO for Jack Della Maddalena. 18 for Ziam versus Frivola. I think this is disrespectful, guys. This is, like, arguably the best KO of the year, I think. And then Song versus Helikov, 19. Giles versus Prates, number 20. I disagree. I mean, it was a walk-off KO, but you know, I think there were better ones. And then, I mean, aside from that, there's just so many other ones that you can go through. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you have a list? What's your KO of the year? Is it Gaethje versus Holloway? Is it this? Is it this? Is it any of these? Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the next one.